St. John the Philosopher here. A guy named Paul made a video asking some questions of Christian Trump supporters. Well, I'm here with the answers. Paul made this video for the Republican Voters Against Trump YouTube channel, which I will link in the description below, in which he asked what could be taken as rhetorical questions of Christian Trump supporters. Now, these aren't new or even based in a creative angle of criticism, but they are of a kind that we've seen for the last 4 years coming from both Christians and non-Christians who stand against Donald Trump's presidency. As such, I thought it might be helpful to take this head on. The video starts off with a reading from the book of Corinthians.
Love is patient, love is kind. Love does not envy, love does not boast.
I suppose it's only appropriate that Paul start with Paul, right? This leads into the first question.
What are you standing for? Really?
Then there's a series of other questions after that, some legitimate and others like you'd expect from an irate MSNBC host. But they generally don't matter because the first question is actually at the crux of the argument being made here, which, unfortunately, is built on a couple of false premises. The first false premise is that Trump supporters, particularly Christian ones, are okay with Trump's misdeeds. You obviously think very little of your Christian brothers and sisters to believe that. Trump's womanizing, his vulgarity, his often indiscriminate verbal bomb throwing is all easy to recognize and would be easy to criticize, if not for the fact that there's so little space left to do so in the arena of public discourse. Like I pointed out in another video in defense of President Trump, linked in the description below, when Trump does or says something bad, the response he receives is so over the top and so widely broadcast that there's no room for any reasoned criticism or discussion. Imagine what that would be like in your everyday life. Joe was really out of line with what he said to Bill. I agree. Joe is such a racist. What? He's all about that white supremacy, you know. I'm pretty sure he's literally killing people as we speak. The second false premise is that Christian political support can only go to politicians that meet some sort of Pharisee-like standard of righteousness. That a vote for such a deeply flawed individual as Donald Trump is a step too far and somehow taints us in the process. Yeah, that's bullcrap. If a vote for the good things about a candidate necessarily means an endorsement of the bad things about that candidate, then no Christian should ever vote for any politician, period. Because of the nature of a representative democracy, we, the individual voters, bear a measure of leadership responsibility as stewards of the nation. Basically, we do the hiring and firing of America's managerial staff. And while, as Christians, we would like those to whom we give governing power to behave more like Ted Cruz rather than Ted Nugent, the greater concern is how that candidate's governance would impact people's realities as opposed to their feelings. Now, if we want to talk about love, like how we started this whole thing, then I have a few questions of my own. Isn't it loving to give people the dignity of earning their own way by creating an economy with one of the lowest unemployment rates in history, particularly among women and minorities? Isn't it loving to want to protect communities from the types of violence and chaos that has caused people so much loss? Isn't it loving to create a pathway for redemption for thousands of former criminals to rejoin society as productive members? Isn't it loving to have done so much to protect the unborn that pro-life advocacy website lifenews.com declared Trump the most pro-life president in history? Seriously, the man is helping to literally reshape the political status quo for the better in the Middle East, and some of you are too busy out here white knighting for Stacey Abrams to give a care. I'd like to say I get it, but I just don't. Look, I'm not deaf to Trump's sharp tongue or happy about how liberally he employs it, but I'm also not blind to what he's managed to accomplish in spite of constant put-downs by popular entertainers, attacks and misrepresentations by the media, stonewalling by Democrats in all branches of government, and an incredible effort by all three groups to remove him from office for all 4 years of his presidency. I'm also not too self-righteous to admit that were I talked about the way he is, I can't say I wouldn't get a little salty with my political adversaries. I'm just saying. It's like how John McClane went to Nakatomi Tower to reconcile with his wife. Make marriage great again, right? But instead finds himself surrounded by a bunch of violent sociopaths only after money and power. And while he's dealing with all that, The peanut gallery on the outside of the building is wrapped up in procedure and proper protocol, ultimately proving himself to not only be ineffectual, but counterproductive. I lost you. Let me bring it back. You know, the entirety of the Bible, with the exception of Jesus, is filled with stories about God using terrible sinners to accomplish godly purposes. Moses, Jacob, Joseph's brothers, David, just to name a few. Christ's first missionary to the Samaritans wasn't one of his disciples, but a 5-time adulteress that he just met. If you don't think God can use someone like Donald Trump, your understanding of God needs some tweaking. At some point in this video, Paul calls Donald Trump a false prophet. The problem, of course, is that in order to be a false prophet, you have to claim to be a prophet in the first place. We're not talking about electing a pastor-in-chief. November's election isn't about picking the executive of the deacons board. We're talking about choosing someone to run the government in such a way as to benefit the most people in the best way possible. That's it. There is no question that Christian conservatives should and do wish there was someone out there with a chance to win that not only represented conservative political values, but conducted themselves blamelessly with honor, compassion, and good humor, even while standing up to the media bullies and cultural tastemakers. It would make our day to throw our support behind someone as religiously pious as they are politically savvy. But that person isn't on the ballot in November. I'm not even sure that person exists. The reality is that no matter how much we'd rather it be otherwise, presidential elections in America are a binary choice, where voting for an unlikely third party or even sitting it out ultimately ends up supporting one candidate or the other. Given how the idea of fence-sitting or being lukewarm is portrayed in the Bible, we Christians should understand that concept more than anyone else. So when the choice is between a confused career politician standing on one of the most radical far-left platforms in American history, and the foul-mouthed president who's somehow delivered one conservative victory after another against long odds? Tell me what you think of this video. What do you think about Christian support for Donald Trump's presidency? Discuss in the comments. In the meantime, be sure to like, subscribe, and share for more videos on religion, culture, and politics. That's all for today. Goodbye, God bless, and we'll see you in another video.